Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode number two of Weekly Hope this week. I'm Kirsten Hagland, and for those of you who've joined our broadcast before, you know that we have our unofficial co-host here to welcome you as well. That's Elsa. It's a joy to have you here. Thank you so much for spending your Wednesday afternoon with us. So we have got a super cool show for you today. If you're joining us for the first time, I want to let you know a little bit too about what we do here, what the show is all about, and what we hope to give you, to share with you. So Weekly Hope started here as something that eatingdisorderhope.com wanted to do and provide in June, early June. I started hosting these, and we do interviews with guests, and they range everyone from clinicians and experts in the field to advocates, to people with their own recovery stories and battles, to people leading nonprofit organizations, a wide variety of different guests that we try to bring on, interview, and get their insights and perspective and talk about really interesting topics in the field of eating disorder recovery. So that's what this show is all about. So if you've stumbled onto us, well, welcome, and we hope that you will join us again soon. We do at least one broadcast a week, sometimes two. And you can check out all of the information on previous shows, as well as upcoming guests on our Facebook page, as well as on Instagram and at eatingdisorderhope.com. So without further ado, I want to introduce our guest for today, who is Dr. Anita Johnston, and she is joining us there on the other side of the screen. Hi, Dr. Johnston.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Hello. So I'm going to read you a little bit of Dr. Johnston's bio, but then we are going to dive into it, and I'm going to let her explain all the great work that she's done, because the bio doesn't do it justice. Because we're going to be talking about something really cool and unique that nothing like we've discussed on this program before today. So let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Johnston. So she is a clinical psychologist. She's an IADEP certified eating disorder specialist. And if you're not familiar, IADEP is an anagram that stands for the International Association of Eating Disorder Professionals. And she's also the author of Eating in the Light of the Moon: How Women Can Transform Their Relationships with Food Through Myth, Metaphor, and Storytelling. And that's obviously a huge chunk of what we are going to be talking about today. The book has been published in 6 languages, and according to the website, I was overjoyed to learn that it consistently receives 5 stars on Amazon. Very, very important. She's also authored book chapters in Eating Disorders, Bridging the Research Treatment Gap, and the Psycho-Spiritual Clinician's Handbook, along with numerous articles in professional journals. Dr. Johnston has been treating eating disorders for over 35 years. A pioneer in the field, she founded the Anorexia and Bulimia Center of Hawaii in 1982, developed Hawaii's first inpatient eating disorders treatment program at, Kahimohala Hospital in 1986. Am I saying that right? Kind of. And created the very first eating disorders IOP, which is intensive outpatient program in the U.S. on the island of Oahu in 2001. In 2010, she developed Australia's first intensive outpatient eating disorders program in Sydney. So a lot of incredible things that you have done. And you have written, and I, as someone who's only been in this field 10 years, and was very young when I started, so I really feel like I've only been in it maybe 5. You and your book in particular has always been, and I explained this to you on our pre-interview call, has always been one of the classics of eating disorder recovery, and so respected and revered by so many people. So with that, I want to start there. Did you think, when you decided to write Eating in the Light of the Moon and the really cool concept and philosophy behind that, did you realize that it was going to be such a huge success and that it would be so relatable to so many people?
No, I mean, it took me 10 years to write it, so it wasn't like I zipped through it. I would tell stories with my clients to try to help them understand some difficult, complex concepts, and I found storytelling was a way to do that. I had grown up with storytelling, and my children went to Waldorf schools. They also call them Steiner schools. So everything was taught in storytelling, and they would come home with stories about Prince division and Prince multiplication. So I thought, if I would know my times tables by now if I learned them like that.
Yeah, of course.
So I started using the stories with my clients and sharing some of these concepts with them. And they kept asking me, well, where can I read more about this? And I went, I don't think it's been written. So it began with this idea that I was going to create like a booklet for my clients, and it just grew and grew and grew into what it is today. And now I'm surprised, but it still is very alive. And for years, people had asked me about a workbook. And again, it was, how could I make this like interesting and lively? Because the thought of a workbook just didn't inspire me at all. And so then I came up with the Light of the Moon Cafe, which is now an online workbook for eating in the light of the moon. So it just, the truth is, I didn't write that book. It wrote me. That's really how it is. Mm-hmm.
That's a really cool way of putting it. I'm gonna put the link up here for Light of the Moon Cafe, which is the workbook that you talk about. Talk a little bit about, why did it take so long to talk about, because we get so into, and there is so much insofar as genetic research, neurobiological research, all of the very hard sciences, which we need that research obviously to do good treatment, and you do treatment as well. But why is it that, and I grew up in the performing arts, I grew up doing ballet and dance, and so all of this. So this I am totally on board with. But why did it take so long for someone to say, hey, we really need to incorporate this kind of treatment modality into more of the work that we do with patients? Why do you think that it took so long?
I think it took so long. When I entered the field, bulimia had just been diagnosed.
Wow.
Anorexia was only recently a household name because of Karen Carpenter. Yeah. Binge eating disorder wasn't even on the horizon. So yeah. I was all by myself in Hawaii, and I was working with, I was supervising a doctoral student who's doing her dissertation on eating disorders. And we would meet regularly, and the more we met, and we met with another woman who had recovered herself from an eating disorder, who was a social worker. And we said, oh my gosh, there's a big problem here. There's lots of people that are struggling. There should be a center for this. So after we said it about the fifth time, we looked at each other and we went, I guess we're it. We're the center.
Yeah, my goodness. Yeah.
And then girls and women of all ages, all ethnicities, all shapes and sizes started showing up. And I didn't know what was going on. And so I was just trying to figure it out. And so what I did is I listened to their stories as closely as I could. And out of that emerged my understanding of what eating disorders were about. So there wasn't a whole lot of research being done at that time. There weren't, in those days, those early days, their residential treatment facilities had just begun. Up until that time, it had only been hospital treatment. So yes. I don't think it took that long, because it has just emerged along with the field.
Yeah. What are some of the most powerful myths you think that, I guess, and both like myths that we may tell ourselves or create for ourselves that are not necessarily true, as some of the ones that are extremely powerful and helpful in guiding someone toward recovery? And I know that everyone is so different, but what have you seen in your work that stands out to you as really powerful?
Well, there's two ways to use the word myth, right? The way we use it in our modern culture is it's a falsehood. Mm-hmm. The way it's used in terms of myths as stories, those are the truths that appear to be false on the surface, but really are true at a deeper level in the psyche. So I think one of the primary myths in terms of falsehood is that there's no meaning behind what someone is doing with their disordered eating. And in fact, I see this is the underlying belief on almost everyone.
I think we may have lost Dr. Johnston.
Oh no, I see you. You've lost me? I'm still here. Oh dear. Mm-hmm.
Maybe she will come back. Sorry, guys. Let me try to figure that out.
I'm here, so I can hear.
Are you guys still with me?
I can hear you and see you.
Let me know and comment and tell me if you're still seeing me.
I have to find you now.
Hold on 1 second. Friends.
Comment.
She just disappeared.
I'm here. Shoot.
I'm going to try to get Dr. Johnston back on. Hold on here. Oh, you guys, this is hilarious. Okay, Denise says she can hear both of us.
Yeah, I'm here.
For whatever reason, I'm not seeing her. Denise, is she still talking?
I'm talking, yes. I don't know why you can't see me, but I can see you. I can see people that have popped up.
This is very strange. Y'all, technology. It is awesome.
So
when I say awesome, I mean sometimes it doesn't do what you want it to do.
Here's a metaphor. She can't hear me. You guys can hear me, but she can't hear me.
Okay, Dr. Johnston.
Yes.
So when I say awesome, I mean sometimes it doesn't do what you want it to do. Wait, are you still there?
Here's a metaphor. All along. She can't hear me. You guys can hear me, but she can't hear me.
Okay, Dr. Johnston.
Yes. She can't hear me. You guys can hear me, but she can't.
Yay, I got you.
I never went away.
I know. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh. I am so sorry. Yes, that is indeed a metaphor. I had to go out of this service and click onto Facebook, and I saw your beautiful face there, and I was like, okay, she still is there. It just, the screen went blank on my end. So sorry. Okay, so you were talking about myth and yes.
So the myth that's a falsehood that everyone I've ever worked with that struggles with any kind of eating difficulty has believed is that there must be something wrong with me. And that's the reason why I have this eating disorder, disordered eating, exercise addiction, whatever. And so that's the primary myth, that there's something wrong with them. And then everything gets interpreted in that way. Oh, he seems angry at me. There must be something wrong with me. Oh, this didn't go as smoothly as I like. Oh, there must be something wrong with me. And so this myth permeates everything, and it permeates the concept that there's something wrong with them. So that, I think, is a fundamental falsehood, really, because the truth of the matter is, the way I see it is, not only is there not something wrong with you, typically people who struggle with disordered eating are very emotionally sensitive and highly intuitive. Now, in my book, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, our world would be in a lot better shape if our world leaders had those qualities, because what comes with that is a level of compassion and empathy that's sorely needed. So these are fabulous gifts to have. However, here's the catch, right? There's always a catch. If you live in a world that does not value them, that says, oh, you're overreacting, or you're too sensitive, or what's wrong with you, then what happens is you have to find some way to diminish this capacity to see subtle realities that maybe others don't see so clearly. And that's where the disordered eating comes in. It becomes a way of distracting or numbing or running from those qualities that maybe you haven't learned how to work with, but they're fabulous qualities.
Yeah, and I almost feel like, I mean, I remember for me, when I started to struggle, I was a ballet dancer, and I have always loved the arts. And one of the things I loved the most about ballet was I loved the stories that we told, whether it was classical ballets or more contemporary ballet where the choreographer came in and had a story to tell. And I felt like I could become one with the story and the music. And it was such a vital form of expression for me. And there's so much emotion wrapped up in that. But then at the same time, ballet is very disciplined, and it tells you to also, yes, you can use emotion for storytelling, but then in every other regard, you must suppress your emotions completely. Right. And it's so hard to live in that juxtaposition. And then also with the fear that comes with, well, if I feel too much, even if it's a good feeling, I'm too much. Exactly. Or the emotion will take control of me. And, you know?
And the reason why food comes into play is you see it get played out metaphorically in the food. So, for example, someone who's restricting, it's not just food they're restricting their emotions, they're restricting new experiences, they're restricting their sexuality, they're always putting themselves on restriction if they make a mistake. And so you'll see this theme of restriction. And then if you look at someone who might be struggling with binging, you'll find the theme of scarcity everywhere. There's never enough. It's not just never enough food. There's never enough time. There's never enough money. There's never enough attention. There's never enough acceptance. So this theme of never enough or I'm not enough. And with restriction, you'll see this fear of things being too much. Life is too much. So you may have to restrict life, because when you're emotionally sensitive, you feel things strongly. Yes. What doesn't bother someone else can penetrate your very bones. And someone who's like yo-yo dieting or binging and purging, they swing between the two. And so this ongoing struggle of sometimes taking in more than you can assimilate, more quickly than you can handle. So it's a metaphoric expression of a deeper struggle. And it's a struggle because in our culture, we don't teach people how to maneuver in a world that values being thick-skinned when you're a thin-skinned person. And so there are skills that someone can learn, and they're just skills, right? You don't need a special talent or DNA to develop these skills. You simply need to be taught the skills of how to be a sensitive person, how to ride your emotions rather than stuff them or run from them or hide them. And anyone can learn these skills.
Absolutely. I just want to bring up here, first of all, thank you, Denise, so much in the comments. Denise, thank you for helping us with that. I appreciate it. I appreciate you helping us with our technical glitch. And then Nikki also says, I want to bring her into the conversation here. She says, in ancient groups of people, those very sensitive individuals may have even had a specific role in the community. Now there is so little community. It is hard for people to find a way to celebrate that sensitivity. Yeah, I think that's a really, really great point. And also that brings me to the question, Dr. Johnston, what would you say to people who are listening who maybe, and this is not me, but I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a critic or a skeptic of some of this, where we have a vehicle like social media for so much emotional expression. And there can be 50 outrage machines going on at one time. And, a critic might look and say, what are you talking about? We have so many overly emotional, overly reactionary people on the internet every day making emotional comments about stuff they don't understand or, that kind of thing, that we need people to be less emotional. So that's not my view. But I've talked to people who don't have experience in the mental health field or with eating disorders and things like that. And when they hear people like you and me talk about this, that is a common response.
Because there's some confusion, you see. There's a huge difference between, for example, feeling anger or feeling like smashing someone's face in and doing it, right? There's nothing wrong with what you're feeling. There's no right or wrong feelings. There's no good or bad feelings. Feelings are, and honestly, we can't control them any more than we can swim up a mountain. So feelings are part of the human condition. They arise and they pass away, and they arise and they pass away, and they're like waves. They're energy in motion, emotion. They're a wave that comes in, peaks, and it passes. That doesn't mean another one won't come back. So there's a huge difference between the emotion and the way it's expressed. I think it's really important to understand that emotions themselves cannot cause damage. Suppression of the emotions and inappropriate expression of the emotions can cause damage, but the emotions themselves are simply energy. And so what happens typically is when people fight that energy that is like a natural wave that just wants to move through you, all kinds of things can go wrong. So I think that's what happens is people confuse anger and violence, for example, and they're so not the same thing. Most of the time, violence is an inappropriate expression of anger that has been suppressed for way too long.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely a really great point. When you work with individuals who are in recovery and are exploring some of the emotions, because obviously there's a myriad of them that have been suppressed in some way for a long time, which is the one that is most difficult or probably takes the longest to overcome, or to not overcome, to regulate in a way that is beneficial and life-giving
Yeah.
rather than the reverse of that. I know for me, I discovered that I had a lot of anger that I did not know
Yeah.
that I had. I was like, no, I'm a calm person. Everything's fine with the world. But I had a lot of anger to deal with. But what do you think?
It's typically anger, especially for females. Now, in our Western culture, females are really discouraged from expressing anger. Males are discouraged from expressing sadness and vulnerability, but
Mm-hmm.
females are discouraged from expressing anger, which is why, for me, there's one fundamental skill, and I've never seen anyone ever recover from an eating disorder. I've seen thousands of people totally, completely recovered, period, end of story. But I've never seen anyone recover without the skill of assertive communication, because this is one way in which you can express your feelings in a way that's not destructive, and it's not repressive, especially for anger. So assertive communication is, for example, saying something like, when you leave your towel on the floor, I feel really angry because it seems to me you expect me to pick up after you. Now, it's not accusatory. It's not blaming. It's not saying, why'd you leave your towel on the floor? What's wrong with you? You're always leaving your stuff all over the place. That's inappropriate expression of anger, because it's accusatory, it's blaming, and it's putting down, and it doesn't enhance connection. And that's what we're all hungry for deep down, is connection. And inappropriate expression of anger disconnects. Appropriate expression helps us connect and helps us be understood, which is what we all really want. So in my experience, anger often, because people don't know how to communicate assertively, it's not taught, right? If I had my way, it would
Yeah.
be taught in every school there was, because I haven't used my algebra very much, but I sure have to, assert myself in relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would imagine that probably too, that a very important part of this work in discovering these emotional experiences is also an acceptance, because not everyone is going to. And I know I was just having a conversation with someone about this the other day, that sometimes when we get in a place where, oh, I know that I'm regulating my emotions in a healthy way, that I'm expressing in them and practicing assertive communication, that other people don't always handle it so well. So,
But that's a skill too, is learning how to deal with other people's responses. So
yeah.
assertive communication is the capacity to identify, accept, that's an important part of it, and then express those feelings in a way that honors your experience and honors the experience of the others. So even if they're not pleased with what you have to say, because a lot of times these are difficult conversations and people may not like what you have to say, at least you know that you're expressing them in the kindest way possible. And
Mhm.
I feel so strongly about this. For example, that at my treatment center, Aipono in Hawaii, I insist that that is the language that is spoken there. Because, for example, if you need to learn French, the best way is go to France, right? Go where everyone's speaking that language. And so I thought, well, okay, so we'll create a program where everyone speaks that language, the staff and the patient staff, because that's how you learn it. We're not taught it.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of that, let's talk a little bit about, so now what you've done. You talked about starting, your process of writing the book, Eating in the Light of the Moon, and going through this use of metaphor and storytelling with food, and then created what we touched on just a bit in the beginning, the Light of the Moon Cafe. So please let us know what that is, and how people can get involved, because it's online, right? And so people don't have to, they can do it from the comfort of their computer.
Yeah, it's again, it evolved out of my trying to create a workbook. And so what I have now is my online platform, Light of the Moon Cafe. And we have women there from all over the world. And some of their courses, so I have a series of 8-week courses that are interactive. So every day people get an audio of me telling a story or a metaphor, or maybe they'll get a poem, or we might read, this week we're reading chapter 7 and Eating the Light of the Moon. And then there's a forum. So people are on the forum every day, all day, from all over the world. We have folks from New Zealand and Australia and the Netherlands and all across the US and Guatemala and Israel. And so it's really, really fun. And there's only one rule. And the rule is no advice, only support. And it's very structured. It's not a free for all, because every day there's an activity, and there's like if I tell a story, and then there'll be story questions around that to help you bring it more into your life, or if we're working with metaphors for what different foods mean that someone might be binging or restricting. But what's so awesome, and that's why I love it so much, is the wisdom of these women comes forth, and what they have to say is extraordinary. Now, I've always known this because I've been in the field for years, and I've always thought, oh my gosh, I wish my other clients could hear what these clients are saying, because it's incredible. Well, now they can. Now they're on there, and I respond every day to the comments. But what's most powerful are what these other women have to say. It's way cool.
Isn't that incredible? It sounds amazing. You just said something that piqued my interest. And maybe it's too varied and there are too many to describe, but what are some of the metaphors for different foods? You mentioned for people struggling with binge eating disorder, I think you mentioned. What are some of those food metaphors?
Well, this is, to me, the cool thing is once you understand there's meaning in the struggle with the disordered eating, but the meaning is coded, it's hidden. But guess where it's hidden? It's hidden in the very foods you struggle with. How cool is that, right?
Yeah, yes.
But you have to, it's coded, so you have to learn to crack the code. And the way you do it is through metaphor. And so there's you start off with general categories, and of course, everybody's different. Right. And sweet foods typically have to do with either feeling like there's not enough sweetness in your life and you're not sweet enough. Crunchy, salty foods typically are connected to unexpressed anger and frustration. Warm foods like soups and stews often are connected to a craving for emotional warmth. Spicy foods are connected to a desire or fear for excitement, stimulation, and change. And chocolate, come on, we know this, right? Sex and romance. So I have, if anyone's interested, if you go to lightofthemooncafe.com, there's a PDF that you can download called Food and Metaphor Guide, if your listeners are interested in this. Oh. And what happens is once you start to go down this path, it's extraordinary, and it's also a lot of fun. Yeah. So here's an example. I had a client, she was struggling with bulimia. And I said to her, I said, okay, if there were any food that you wished you could eat with no consequences, there'd be zero consequences, what food would that be? And she said, oh, it would be vanilla ice cream with strawberries on top. And so I said, okay, describe to me what is so wonderful about vanilla ice cream with strawberries on top? Imagine I've never had it before. And she said, oh, it's sweet and it's smooth and it's refreshing. Now, when we took a look at what was going on in her life, her boyfriend was accusing her of not being sweet enough. She'd hit a really rough patch with her parents that she was desperately wanting to smooth out. And she was in a dead-end job in need of a refreshing change. So one food, 6 months of therapy, right? Wow. And so what happens, what's so great, is once you get it, it pops into your consciousness. And things start to shift really, really quickly. Once you start to recognize what the real hungers are.
Wow. That is so powerful. It's like it seems like I'm sitting here going, well, yeah, duh. Why, it seems so.
Thinking in these terms, right? We're used to being so literal, and we're used to being so judgmental. So as long as you're judging yourself about the food and you're just looking at it literally, you're not going to be able to crack the code. because it's in our language. So here's a good one. This one's really kind of fun. I was working remotely with a woman in she was in London, and she would come in for our sessions, and she was almost always late. She was like rushing, her hair is flying all over the place, and just had to catch her breath. Or I'd get a text saying, "Okay, I'm on the train, I'm on my way." And so she came in for a session. She goes, "Oh my gosh, I'm so upset. I really need your help. I binged last night." I said, "Okay, so what did you binge on?" And she said, "Oh, I'm embarrassed to say, but it's usually something sweet, and I add ketchup to it." And I went, ketchup. So I said, "So what was going on that day?" She goes, "Well, I work for a company, and we had a new crowdfunding. It's a startup company. We had a crowdfunding, and it was really stressful because if we didn't meet our goal, the company was going to fold." And I said, "Oh, did you meet your goal?" She goes, "Yes." And I said, "Did you know that when you binged?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Well, after you binged, and then did you just, I imagine, did you eventually make it?" And she said, "Yes, we did make it." But I said, "So then was there a celebration? What did you do?" She goes, "No, we just had to move right on to the next thing." And they went, "Oh, you're always trying to catch up."
Oh my gosh. That is it's like funny, but it's true.
It's true. Well, see, it's funny because what happens when you get it, it's enlightening. When you know, if it hadn't been true, it wouldn't have been funny, okay? But because for her it was true, it's enlightening, not just in the way of bringing illumination to the struggle, but also a levity. And this is what's so great about working with metaphor, because anyone who's struggled with an eating disorder, disordered eating, or eating difficulties knows it's hard work, it's grueling. So any time that you can have a little bit of fun with it, that's really valuable, because that's where the energy comes for healing.
Yes, absolutely. Gosh, I love those stories. Thank you so much for telling us to those. And I just want to let everyone know too that I have put the link to lightofthemooncafe.com in the comments section so that you can go there, click on that, and download the PDF of what format. Is that the name of the PDF that you mentioned?
Food and there'll be a pop-up. A pop-up will come up that will just say, perfect, "We'll send you this PDF."
Perfect. Okay, because I think that would be super, super helpful for people. And then also, let's talk a little bit about iPono. So, I mean, the website is absolutely gorgeous. And, you know, obviously, who wouldn't want to go to Hawaii for eating disorder treatment? But tell us about, you know, when you started and what kind of services you offer there.
So I had the opportunity about 5 years ago to start a residential treatment center. Someone had, you know, invited me to do that. And I thought, wow, create a treatment center with you know, just the way I think it should be done. It was really, it was an opportunity I couldn't resist. And so I mentioned earlier, one of the things that I got to do is say, okay, we speak assertiveness here, that's our language. But also I found that at that level of care, so we have a residential program on Maui. We have outpatient programs on the Big Island of Hawaii and in Honolulu, which is in Oahu. But at the residential level of care, what I was finding is that there's typically a lot of trauma that needed to be addressed. So I said, okay, we need a trauma track. And so we do EMDR and we do neurofeedback and include that. And it's just been really exciting for me. Of course, we do storytelling and metaphors. And we do a lot of, you know, all the different evidence-based, you know, DBT and all of those approaches, so that there's really a combination of different things. It's small, it's tiny, it's an 8-bed oceanfront facility. So it's tiny, it's beautiful. I sometimes when I'm group, we're looking at the ocean, and all of a sudden the whales will start breaching, and I'm trying to run a group, and I'm going, oh my gosh, the whales! No, get back to group. Oh, look at the whale! I mean, because how can you resist?
Yeah, absolutely. Cool, wonderful. Well, absolutely beautiful, and you know, we support what you do. It's really, really incredible, and encourage people to go check out the website. We put it there in the comments as well as up here on the screen, ipono.com. And can you talk about what ipono means?
Yes, so it's a Hawaiian word that was gifted to me by a Hawaiian elder. And I is the word for food and nourishment of all kinds. And pono is in the right way, or in it's more of a like a body, mind, and spirit. It's pono is such a big word in the Hawaiian language because it really means to do it in the right way, not in terms of perfection, but the way that nature is intended to be.
So beautiful, so cool. Dr. Johnston, you are just a rock star. It has been such an absolute joy to talk with you about all of the great work that you're doing. And I really hope that for those of you who've been listening and commenting that you found something really powerful in this conversation to take away, especially download that PDF from the lightofthemooncafe.com, because I'm sure I'm going to go download it right now because I just think it's so, so cool and fascinating. And also, if you think that a loved one or a family member, someone that you know might be struggling and would benefit from something like that, go download it and go share it with them. And go share with them the resources at lightofthemooncafe.com where they can go online and be a part of something like this. Dr. Johnston, is it constantly on a rolling basis that people can join at any time?
No, there's one self-study that's on a rolling basis. Others have to, it's a class, so we all start together and we stay together all the way through. So there's self-study, but then the interactive one starts at certain times.
Okay.
If anyone is interested, I do talks and workshops all over the place. They can go to my website, which is dranitajohnston.com, and that always has like the latest upcoming events. And because I may be in your neck of the woods, you never know. I never know.
Yes. Now you're joining us from Colorado today, is that right?
I mean, I have two bases basically here in Colorado because I travel so much. It's really easy getting in and out of here. And then I'm in Hawaii, so I'm back and forth. Airports is my other home. So I lost you now. I'm not sure. Technology, right? I'm not sure if you still can see me because you're frozen on my end. Ah, are you there? You're back? Can you see me? Can you hear me? No. Ah, can you see me?
I can see you. Yeah. Sorry about that. We just had another fun little interruption. Reminding us, Dr. Johnston, that let's see if I can do this right, that life is not perfect and full of interruptions that we don't plan. And yet if we persevere, keep calm and stay the course, then everything will work out the way that it's supposed to.
Yeah. Your key word, acceptance, right? Accept what is.
Yeah. Amen. Absolutely. Yeah. So I got your website up on the screen, as well as I just put it in the comments saying, get updates on where Dr. Johnston is next. When are you doing a TED Talk?
I think about that from time to time and think, oh, that would be fun, but I've never pursued it, explored it. People have mentioned it for me from time to time, and I think it'd be fun.
I think you would be amazing. I think the world needs to hear your message. Very, very much so. Well, they already are. I mean, you've got people from all over the world, but I think it's really, really revolutionary what you continue to do. And thank you so much for all of your great work.
Thank you. I've enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, me too.
Great.
Yes, me too. So I'm going to say goodbye, and then I'm going to say goodbye to the rest of our guests here. So thank you so much, Dr. Johnston.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. So just want to say goodbye to you guys. Thank you so much for sticking with us through a few of those glitches. But as we said, life isn't perfect and you just move on. So check out all those links in the comments section. If you're joining us and we're halfway through or, at the end of the show like we are now, make sure you rewind and watch from the beginning some really, really incredible insights from Dr. Johnston there. So also check out her book, Eating in the Light of the Moon, the Light of the Moon Cafe, and where she might be next at dranitajohnston.com. So that's it from us today. We've got 2 episodes of Weekly Hope again next week, one on Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern and one on Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern. So stay tuned for updates on both of those and our guests. And wherever you may be in the world, Elsa and I say a beautiful, blessed day to you, afternoon. And don't lose your emotional sensitivity. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. All right. Mwah. Ciao. Signing off. We'll see you next week.